and that can be offered digitally. Municipal transportation is working, is moving ahead. We want to discuss where do we want to head, what is ahead of us, and I'm very happy to be able to talk to you about all of this. So, what are our targets? Where are we at the moment? Where in terms of connectivity and networking, what can we offer? What has been built up in the recent years? And then we can take the next step. So, thank you. With the networking, we didn't only start last year, but basically this is a topic that we've been working on for 20 years. And for those who don't come from our industry, we have a very fragmented industry. We've got a lot of areas of responsibility, and it is very difficult and a lot of work to bring all these partners into one system so that at the end of the day they can appear as one whole for the passenger. From a customer point of view, we would have to start with the passenger information and go through the entire chain. And here we've really progressed and made good advances. We are organized throughout the Länder, the provinces here in Germany. We've created a governance by means of which we can access all the schedules and bring them together into one whole. So to have one cluster of scheduled data where all the connections are brought together, that is available to everybody. This is an open data set. So this is not only for our partners in the industry, but the customers can be informed, and third-party platforms can access this data as well. That is the actual schedule, and the plan. The reality isn't always that the buses and the trains don't always arrive at the right place at the right time. So there are always complications and problems. So in reality, we have to be able to tell our passengers that there is a delay, and we have to be able to offer alternatives if that situation arises. And we're doing well here as well. However, only started in recent years, but even here, we've got a project that is going to be completed where all the real-time data in the industry can be collected. There's a two-cluster solution, one for northern Germany, for Lower Saxony, and a cluster in southern Germany, which collects the data in that region, and they communicate with each other. So there is going to be a real-time scheduled data set. All of that is called Delphin, German-wide passenger information. So we've done very well here. We've done our homework, and very soon we can tick that off and say that this is available to everybody. And then we have to move on down the service chain where the tariffs and the prices are concerned. I don't want to give a monologue, but there's still work to do here. We've got lots of different prices and tariffs, and they have to be made available in such a way that you can price your tickets easily. We're doing quite well here, and I'll talk more about that later. For sales, in the last 6 years, we've built a nationwide solution which provides an offer called Mobility inside. The first apps are already available in the app stores. But all in all, it means that in this world of digital connectivity, we've already achieved quite a lot. Ms. van Zadel, what about in the region of Hanover? You're working on a lot of mobility concepts and offers. You have to connect them. Yes, I have to agree with. Years ago we started, and we've already achieved quite a good standard. The actual schedule data and the planned schedule data, we have to see when was the bus meant to leave and when will it actually leave, and we have to get that data. We're working on that. This is a chain that comprises a lot. We have to provide alternative mobility offers. If a bus doesn't go, how can I get an alternative possibility? Car sharing, scooters, So the entire route has to be thought through from the point of view of the customer and passenger. We've done very well. We can offer certain things to the customer. We can tell the customer today, this is what you can obtain already today, but we haven't reached the end yet. We have work to do, but we are the victim of all the data that we can generate and that we have to store as well. We've got a lot of data that is available throughout the whole of Germany. We can compare the data, and at the moment, we're providing the customer the solution that will accompany the passenger from his home to the destination, and the customer will know when does the bus come, if it doesn't come on time, what alternatives are there. And we have Sprinti, that is a transportation system based on needs. This can only be booked digitally. There is a telephone number which is not really used. So basically, we've got more than 90% of digital bookings in this area, and we're expecting that the customer wants that. And the more data we provide, the more digital offers we make, the better it will be accepted by the customer. We can see that. So the offers that are digital today are used by the customer digitally, and that data is fed into the traffic chain. So we have areas where we have to do some more work. For example, securing a connection. Here we can do more, and the transportation that is needed in a certain situation has to be looked at as well. But we're also grateful that throughout Germany these offers are made available, that we can secure connections because the actual data, the planned data and the actual data are available somewhere. Due to the fragmented structure, we can't always know from every underground where it is at any given moment, but we can access the data. So we've got the opportunity to secure connections because the data is available. And of course, in the various vehicles, we've got issues. How does the data actually arrive where it's meant to be? But on a municipal level, the preconditions are given. And we have to produce what the customer needs for the entire trip. So a lot of very interesting points. You are representing a company from Germany that develops a lot of innovative products and brings them onto the world market. What is the trend on the European level and worldwide as far as digital connectivity is concerned in municipal transportation? Thank you very much for saying that we're innovative. Ms. from Zadel already said we are working for a very complex industry which is very fragmented, and we are building software products for this complicated and complex industry in order to be able to satisfy the customer. So I'm glad in a way that it's complex, but on the other hand, it's arduous as well to bring all the data together for a schedule information or for an overarching ticketing system. This is a very complex work, and I think we are doing quite well here. We are providing data and solutions to the ÜSTRA Municipal Transportation Company here in Hanover. We would like to deal with more innovative topics for the future rather than just bringing all this fractured data together. One point that is very important is the electric mobility. You talked about the CO2 emission. That is a very important topic. The transportation companies are introducing a lot of electric buses, and the handling is far more complicated than for a normal diesel bus. I can't just refuel it with diesel very easily. I need complex charging mechanism. I have a reduced range for the buses. So as software developers, this is difficult for us. We are building algorithms to support all of these processes, and so that we can replace the diesel vehicle successfully at some point. Also, driverless transportation is very interesting. We have a driverless shuttle here in a pilot project, and we like to look at these type of projects and support them and develop our products in that direction as well. We talked about demographics. Digitization must mean that we become more efficient, that we meet the higher expectations of the customers in terms of mobility with less staff, because we can only recruit less staff in order to be able to do our work and provide the services. We have a nationwide connectivity. We exchange data. We provide them on various servers to be called upon wherever. So we are criticized. We inform people that where the bus or the train is, but once there is a disruption, we are lagging behind, and we don't really have interruption navigation aid or support. So how can we provide better customer services? We're talking about indoor navigation. We don't always need everything, but what topics are on our radar? First of all, let's take a look at Hanover first of all and see what your visions are. Well, we are thinking from the point of view of the customer, and we want to provide the customer a travel chain that collects the customer at home and takes him or her to the destination. So the customer has to get the information during this journey. So depending on how the customer moves, maybe he starts with a car to a park and ride station. So we are setting up centers so that the customer knows that there are free parking spaces there, and maybe he can just book a parking space there. He has to know, is the bus there, is the train there, how will I get a seat? So we are trying to tell the customer how full a car or a train is. So then he must be able to decide, well, if he's traveled in an hour, he has to be able to get a forecast. We're working on that as well. How can we tell the customer whether the parking space will still be free in half an hour, whether the parking lot is full or not? How can he get secured connections? These are all topics that we're working on at the same time. So we've got the data, and now we have to see how do we provide the customer this data individually. And this is the big challenge that we have. Every customer thinks differently, has different expectations when there is a transit. And we have to know, what does the customer need in terms of information? Will he arrive with on-demand services? Will he use Sprinty? He will have different requirements than somebody who comes with a bicycle or a car. Bicycles is another issue. We've got a lot of bike traffic. We have to offer them parking spaces as well. Here in Hanover, we've got fully automatic bike doors, which are available at the railway station, and the cyclist has to know exactly when the train comes in, how many minutes the cyclist wants to have information that is exact in terms of minutes. So we've got expectations, and we have to take that into account and provide the information that the customer wants, whatever the customer is. We also want to be able to collect customers who aren't quite so mobile. We have to be able to tell them, is there a stairs there? Is there an elevator there? If I have to connect, if I have a connection, do I have enough time if I'm slow? If I can't use the stairs, for example, we have to take those customers into account as well. So the range of our customers is just as diverse as life itself is, and everybody needs the information for his or her trip because he's got very individual and personal needs, and that is a difficulty. We have to show every customer exactly what his or her travel chain will be. In our case, we don't book in advance. people just arrive. We can't plan the capacity based on the sale of tickets, as is the case with air travel, for example. There are more and more requirements. The world is very colorful, people are diverse, and during the pandemic, we had a new requirement, and we knew that from long distance travel is information and capacity information.
Gehend unsere Flotten entsprechend abdeckt, sodass wir die Daten überhaupt haben. Das Thema, auf das ich aber
So it requires us to have the data, of course, and the subject is what I was talking about was the general trend.
Ja, dass wir hier auf vielen Datensätzen schätzen.
So,
Und da natürlich jetzt auch
but of course, we have to develop algorithms and smart systems which are capable to learn so that the system is plannable for our passengers and that they get the right information on time. The other thing is that our offers also have to be tailored much better to the needs of our passengers. In your intro, you also mentioned this. So automatic or driverless traffic can be a more efficient subject, especially in our transportation associations. We started a big pilot project in that respect, and those systems can be developed to meet the demand much better, and therefore data are of extreme importance so that we can analyze the data much better. The challenge is always there. We are supposed to double our passenger numbers, and that of course requires higher efficiency efforts. So may I ask you back, because it ends up with some apps which have a digital world. So what is the case with our customers? You told us that customers have accepted this, but still there are some passengers who want to still have a paper ticket. Do we still live with a paper ticket, or will there be something different? What's the trend? Let me answer first. My impression is, and we have been dealing for many years, more than 10 years actually, with the issuance of digital tickets, be it as chip cards, but maybe also on smartphones. My opinion is that in the future the paper ticket will be only a niche product, as we entered the digital world 10 years ago, and that is what I also foresee for the future. Somewhere, of course, there will be some remains. Hallig-Hoge is, for instance, one very important example. It's an island in the North Sea where people, of course, whether or not just one family or two families are living, but the rest certainly will have to adjust to the digital world, because in the sales business we also need more efficiency, and there is a lot of potential which we can open up. I just can support this. The traffic on demand is something which works digitally quite well. Especially this part of transportation is used of elderly people. We initially thought that they would not be able to use digital means, but that was an error. And we know that now there are several passengers, many passengers, who do book tickets via that systems. On top of them, they have some students or some other helpers who explain them to install the app and how it works. But in the meantime, among the people involved, the experience is passed on, and the fear which we might have, that there are certain groups of people who are perhaps too old and will not cope with the digital challenges, that has not come true. In fact, maybe we ourselves sometimes have the feeling that we also need the paper and the telephone number, but in reality this is really not the case, that you can attribute this to certain user groups. So in the end we will certainly transform ourselves. There might be some areas where still paper will be used, but at some point in time our customers will also appreciate this, and we could see this with the €9 tickets. There were much more digital sales as in any other ticket. If the offer is working and if the customers accept it, a digital offer also works, and it will really make its way because it's much more comfortable to the user at the end of the day. Well, I think it's the same. As EVO, we still produce a lot of paper tickets. It's part of our business to build equipment which are able to print paper tickets. But honestly saying, in our company, people are already betting when paper will disappear. So the first bets were made 10 years ago already, and it certainly can take another 10 years, but it's also kind of a waste of paper. So I will be happy when paper will be gone. So, and what is the essential thing is that the use of public transport has to be simplified. And this was one effect of the €9 ticket, as we said earlier on, this kind of travel card which everybody had by buying the €9 ticket allowed them to hop on, hop off, and they did not have to bother about driving without the proper ticket, etc. And the simplicity, that is something which we really have to achieve. I love it when you go through London or New York, you just use your mobile phone, you check in, you check out, you register with your mobile phone. And this is so easy to use. Everybody will understand this. I'm absolutely convinced of that. And this is what we have to introduce. We have to simplify public transport, and even my company, they have to develop further. We should not really only use paper tickets. Certainly there will some being used, and at the end of the day we have to simplify the operating system. That's a very important point, simplifying the system and providing timetable data as real-time data. That is something. Now ticketing has to be made easier. The €9 ticket was one example. Now whether the industry really needs it should not be the subject of our discussion today, but you said the in and out process has to be much smarter. We have to be able to use our cell phones, etc. But we need standards to implement this in Germany. Otherwise we would drift apart. Are there any movements in that sense? Yes, of course. What we need is the so-called account-based ticketing, an ID-based ticketing method where everyone has an idea, whether it's a mobile phone or a chip card. Something like this has to be installed in Germany, and tariffs have to be reconciled and adjusted to each other. Maybe also an easier or a simpler tariff system should be introduced. That is one of the problems we have in Germany, and access should be simplified. And of course, I fully agree with VDV. They are also standardizing the e-ticketing processes, and that is a really good basis which can be introduced across Germany. Now, of course, our customers can receive our offers via apps. We try to put this in practice, and we also are in demand to build a central app. Now, it's already available in the App Store. It's about to be rolled out. What is the further progress? Now we've had the €9 discussion. I'm not sure whether we will discuss the app already. But what is your plan in order to create a central access point for the tickets? Well, due to the complexity of the industry, which is very scattered, we did have some teething problems at the beginning, and now for some years it's already back in the app stores. We had the governance, we've got the financial framework we can work with, we've got the platform which is now up and running already, and now it's important to get the rollout in the industry as soon as possible. But there are two sides of the coin. The one thing is the bundling, and the other part is the provision of data. I mentioned this already. We are already quite good with the real-time data. There are solutions for that. When it comes to tariff, there is a standard already in place, but it needs to be rolled out widely, and this is a Herculean task already. We did build the structures. Now, of course, it's not very helpful that there are still lack of manpower in the market. But at least we managed to cover 40% of the population in the market via apps and via the tariff reconciliation. Our plan is now to use the next 3 years to reach a coverage of about 60%. Therefore, especially we have a lot to do at the basis. As regards the platforms, we have to increase capacities much faster. We realized what the task is. Governance is already there. Now, of course, it's important to become more powerful. And I'm looking also towards the German government, which has this topic also on its agenda. And with the €9 ticket or the follow-up, which might be called the climate ticket, the digital implementation will again be required. And of course, I do hope for some support from the German government, because when we want to get all the different transportation companies at the same table, they are not able alone to create all the digital infrastructure. So as I'm hearing to you, you certainly need more interconnectivity. And as we heard now, the structure is already there. And we've heard that data are the gold of the 21st century. And in Hanover, we also have other providers for public transport, be it Moja or Uber. So we are also entering a competition in prices or services. So what do you see, what the future holds for this part? Data sharing is also one point. Are we the only ones who share data? Maybe also that we can include data from other companies or providers. Is there a certain trend? Well, of course, it's the wish to provide customers with as much as possible. So I'm sure that we cannot just use our data for ourselves in order to push the development. We have to exchange data. Data or traffic associations may only work if we support each other. Certainly, people might have some reservations, but you have to find ways and means how to exchange data. Otherwise, the environmental connection will not work. The customer has to have a closed loop for his travel plans, and it cannot be the case that individual customers interrupt this chain. So, of course, it's not so easy to press a button and everybody would provide his data. There will certainly be harsh debate. It's not an easy way to include everyone in the market. And of course, we are also entering in some confrontation with market economy at the end of the day, because this is something unusual for public economy. We are coming out of a well-feeling community where everybody likes each other. And now, of course, we are coming together with some players which have to act economically in the market in a different way than we knew so far. But we all have the same goal. We want to offer mobility to our customers, and that can be achieved only together, only if the customer gets the impression that there is a closed loop systems which includes ticketing, registration, data, and in the first place, it is important to know where is my means of traffic. Can I use it now or not? And then, of course, it will be single sign-on. Very important. How often do I have to register when I just want to use a scooter or a bicycle? I just want to register in just one system. Otherwise, it will not work. If we don't respect this, we will not reach our carbon emission goals. So, in the end, we know that it can only work if we all work together in the exchange of our data. I think that's a very complex step which we have ahead, because we have to get across company limits. We have to get involved other companies, and it's not only company related, but we have to come up with standards. And given the fact that we've got more than 500 companies in this country, it is, of course, a real big task. Now, let me take a look at the technical data. E-mobility, many data are collected there. We have to plan charging times, planning structure, charging structure. We have to know something about the condition of the vehicles, the charging level of batteries, etc. So all those data have to be processed somehow. That's something internal, what the customer certainly does not see, but which in the end may help to improve quality. So where are we in this respect, and what is the way forward? Yes, indeed, this is a very important subject. The data which we are using with our software products should also be made usable for others. One example could be e-mobility. In simple words, we've got telematic equipment in our buses which can provide us with information about the condition of the bus, which includes the charging level of the battery. We can communicate this to the center at any time, and what we are doing with these data, we try to analyze them in order to give a better forecast of the range of the buses. It's a matter of fact that electric buses have a limited range as compared with a diesel-driven bus. The e-bus has to go back to the charger from time to time to be recharged, and the right moment when this has to happen needs very meticulous planning in order to save buses, because at the end of the day, buses are still very expensive. An electric bus costs twice as much as a diesel bus, and the more we use in the system, the better it will be. And that is why we are constantly refining this reach or this forecast of range with the data we have, and we can of course take into consideration the profiles of the tracks or the time of the year, the season, because all of those factors have an influence on batteries power. This is much more important than for the diesel bus. So the point is that we have to use the data reasonably at the point where they are created. So we do have some vehicle data which we have to use more intensely, more precisely. Also towards energy providers, we have to make sure that charging management is there, that our fleets are not charged at peak times, but in a more distributed way, so that the load is not always the same at the same time. How do workshops develop in this respect? How do we handle data there? What are the ways forward there? Well, actually, electromobility turned us upside down totally. It's a logistic challenge which we've never had before. And the thing is that charging management is also an absolutely new subject for all of us. Our buses are charging 50% from the retrofit energy of our city trams. So we've got also the problem that we have to buffer loading or charging peaks. We can't charge batteries all at the same time. What we do is that we accumulate the energy in batteries, which we use then when there is no peak time. And all those data have to be fed into the system and fed back, and so that we also can charge our buses when no one needs electricity rather than when everybody needs electricity. That is why we have to use our data differently than in a normal household. At the end of the day, we also need those data in our workshops. We have to see where the bus can stand while charging. They're also charging in a line, and the bus which is in front has to leave at first in the morning, so he also has to be fully charged in the morning. And the other thing is driverless driving on workshop grounds, and we have never had this before, so we can be much more efficient on our yards when we can drive without drivers. So a lot of different factors are coming together, a lot of data need to be exchanged, and we also have to learn which data we need at what place, where do we have to make available those data, who needs to know certain things in order to get things forward. That is something which is quite a challenge to us, and we are, of course, foreseeing a huge potential in the system, and that's why we do so, and we think that we really can push up the efficiency of our systems. And of course, at the end of the day, the people who have to ensure that the system keeps working will become rare in the future. And sometimes in the past we thought that we might be running out of drivers, and we certainly have to think that in the future we will not be able to recruit more drivers. Therefore we have to slim down our companies because the expert staff, which we now have, we might not have in the future. And that means that data are becoming more important. We need more software modules with different access possibilities, which is a big opportunity for you. Yes, certainly. This is our future as a company. And to me, it's also very important that the VDV is also committed to standardizing these interfaces, which we as software manufacturers can use. We also are involved in this process. Sometimes we argue with the other manufacturers, but that's how it is. And at the end of the day, a joint standard comes out. And in this respect, Germany is really in the lead. We also provide interfaces to other countries, which is a great thing. And this is the only way it works. We have to be interoperable because it's not logical to think that we as VDV can provide everything to all providers or the all companies. There will always be competition, and we have to be interoperable, and we also have to think across system borders and system limits. Yes, thank you. I think this is something where we all have to work together, even where different interests are met. As time has advanced already, at the end of the day, could you perhaps express one of your wishes or goals? Because you always have to have a goal to work for it. So how can we manage? So we've had the tariff discussion on the one hand, we have the development discussion on the other hand, we have to switch to e-mobility, we need new digitized projects. Of course, they have to be modular and rational, but we have to invest anyway in many things. How can we manage the process, and where do we need support? Yes. Presently, we are now talking about digitization, and I'm absolutely convinced, whether it's Olimat traffic or driverless driving, these new forms are having an enormous efficiency potential, always considering that we have to increase our offers and to improve transportation conditions, and digitization can be a very important step on that. But of course, it all costs money. We should not forget about that. And as we are now having a deep discussion about financing the public transport, and at the same time, as you have mentioned already, we are discussing of a multiple change of our structures. I just can advocate for it. If we manage to speed up in this development of offers and passenger numbers, we will need simply additional support, especially for these digital channels. I mentioned this already for the mobility part. We get some support from the German government. Also, the Federal Minister of Transport mentioned that he will support us and that he thinks we are on the right track. And therefore, I simply hope for some support. At the same thing, this is true for autonomous systems, and on-demand traffic, where we can become much more efficient than in the past, and we can extend our offers that way. So I think that's very interesting for the whole industry. And of course, in these times of lack of expert staff, it's very important. And digitizations, all those are projects which we will see coming. This is very important. We need money for that. Certainly, public transport will cost a lot of money. This is simply a matter of fact. And we notice that we have to act together. We have to cooperate much more. VDV certainly provides good proposals in order to think in a central way of this subject. We will certainly not make any progress when we work as single players. We need to work together. We need financial support to become more efficient and easier and simpler. We should not forget about that. On the other hand, it's of course a huge opportunity, and I wish to broadcast this to the wider public, to the audience, and to the passengers what a good industry we are, what possibilities we have, and what opportunities we have. And I think we are facing a change which is a huge challenge, but also a huge opportunity. And that needs to be communicated to the outside world, and this has to be explained to the people so that they understand it. So what is your wish to the industry? So we are a provider to the public transport. We live on the success of the industry in Germany, and I think the public transport has a very good reputation in Germany, also thanks to the €9 ticket. And apart from all the discussions of the price, that was really a push for the whole industry. And it pleases me, naturally, because that makes our companies feeling very well and being in a very good mood. And so otherwise, I'm convinced that Germany cannot do without public transport. That needs to be developed further. Thank you. That is a very good closing remark. We cannot do without public transport. This is what we always kept saying, and we come back to it. Public transport stands for sustainable mobility, environmentally friendly, and this is what we discussed today. And I think we do need support. We have to take the next step. We are working very hard on that. We have networked 500 companies in Germany, and we are using this now internally. This interconnectivity is being developed in order to build up new offers and systems. And I'm very pleased that you explained this so nicely to us. Thank you for the discussion, and I'm now looking forward to our further cooperation in designing the future. Thank you.
Ja, vielen Dank auch von meiner Seite. Das war eine sehr interessante Diskussion.
Thanks also on my behalf. This was a very interesting discussion. You may leave the stage now. We are approaching lunch, but not yet, because now in a couple of minutes we will have on stage again a German discussion. It's rural areas, growth markets, and climate protection.
If you don't speak German, this next panel will be live translated. You can grab a headset. If you're joining us on the live stream, it will be translated for you. That is kicking off at 12:30. I'll see you then.